Welcome to the Animal Aspirations podcast. In today's episode, I'm joined by two of my friends and fellow Animal Aspirations members. We talk about parents asking the question, why not be a medic? And the societal perceptions of being a vet, especially living in London. We talk about our first impressions coming into veterinary and our experience with vet school as visible ethnic minorities. Imposter syndrome and feeling like you're not good enough are common thoughts, and we speak about the pressures visible ethnic minority students face and why we want to be a part of change within the profession. Thank you guys so much for joining me here today. I'm really excited for this episode. Would you like to introduce yourselves?
So hi, I'm Anantha. I'm a second year vet student at the RVC.
And hiya, I'm Veetha, and I'm also a second year vet student at the RVC.
Yay. So my first question to you is, what was your journey like to veterinary medicine? Or like, how did you get here?
Okay, so I took a slightly longer route to get into veterinary medicine. I did actually apply straight after A-levels, but I was rejected everywhere and I didn't have the grades either. So I decided to go down the first degree route. So I did a BSc in bioveterinary sciences and I graduated 2019, and then I applied for veterinary medicine as a graduate student. I applied for the 5-year program and I was lucky enough to be accepted. So this is where I
am. So mine wasn't straightforward at all. I didn't leave sixth form wanting to be a vet. I actually started a law degree, ended up dropping out. I had a year out and did a lot of work experience at catteries and a farm and stuff, a city farm. But even after that, I applied for zoology and not for vet med. I don't know why, thinking back. So then I graduated from zoology, worked at a nature reserve for about a year, and then I applied for vet med. Yeah, so it's been a process.
That's so interesting, because a lot of people go for the straight, or they think that the only option available is the straight from university 18, you go straight into a degree. So it's really interesting to see that you guys have done other degrees beforehand. How did you know that veterinary was something that you wanted to do? This was the career that you wanted to pursue?
So for me, bearing in mind that I come from a family of medics, my dad's doctor as well, so I was always being pushed towards human medicine for the longest time, and I didn't even consider vet med as an option until I was probably 16 years old. I think that's year 12 time, which was pretty late, I think, because I feel like when you get to vet school, a lot of students are I wanted to be a vet since I came out the womb. So for me, it was a very different experience. But at that age, I think my family had a heavy influence on my career, and I think picking an academically challenging degree and having a good job at the end of it played a massive role in deciding what subject I was going to do. But I've always liked animals, and when I hit year 12, I think I was starting to think more seriously about what I wanted to do. So at that point, obviously sat my parents down, explained what I wanted to do, and the biggest thing for me was getting work experience in the field so that I knew that what I was getting myself into. That I don't have any family in the veterinary business, anything, so I kind of had to pave my own way through this, which was quite difficult at times, but I think it made me a stronger person. But yeah, I was able to combine my love for animals at that age, and then I picked science A-levels thinking I was going to do human medicine, but then obviously switched up last minute. But yes, that was my gem.
What A-levels did you do?
So I did biology, chemistry, maths, and PE. I did 4 A-levels, don't ask why. So yeah, that was mine.
And Veetha, were you one of the people that just knew from birth you wanted to be a vet?
So this is I think I get a bit of imposter syndrome with this, because I know a lot of our cohort, or a lot of people are yeah, I knew I wanted to be a vet when I was really young, and I did want to be a vet when I was really young, and like I remember like being in like infant school, primary school, and I loved visiting my friend's house because like my parents really hate having animals in the house or anything like that, but I loved going to my mates because she had like cats and guinea pigs, and that was just like fun for me. And we used to like pretend being vets and stuff. And I read like, I don't know if they still have them, but like the Animal Arc book series, and it's about like the daughter of a vet. I loved that. So I had that, but then I think like my parents really wanted me to consider like a career that in their mind was more respectable potentially, I don't know. So it was like this whole doctor, engineer, lawyer kind of thing. So I kind of ended up moving away from veterinary, but then doing zoology and like working in conservation for a bit. I saw like we had like this like annual bird catch thing, and the vet will come in and do like run diagnostic tests, collect bloods and stuff like that. And I think seeing that in practice, and then like Anantha said, doing work experience off the back of that made me realize that actually this was something that I really wanted to go back to, kind of thing. So yeah.
What were your family like reactions to you saying you wanted to be a vet? Because you said that you've like, you know, you come from very medical engineer, lawyer kind of backgrounds. With like the first vets in your family, was it kind of like a shock? Were they like, oh, I don't understand, what are you doing? Like, why are you doing something that is different from us? Did you feel like you had something more to prove to yourself that like, yeah, I'm here, like this is what I want to do, this is for me, and like this is going to work out for me?
I think it's like that eternal question of, you're studying 5 years to become a vet, why don't you just become a human doctor? I think that's like the one thing they can't get over, and I think sometimes they still struggle with it now. They don't really understand. I don't know, like Anantha probably gets it more with her family of doctors, but
So, yeah, all of the above. I think when I was 16, that was hard for me because I had to, you know, at that age, it's like, oh, what do you know? You're young. But I think I had a lot to prove, not just to myself, because this is a career I had chosen. So I had to make sure that I enjoyed it and I succeeded at it. But having to prove to my family as well that this is like a worthwhile career. And it did take a while to convince them at first. I will say my family's like wholeheartedly supportive of my career now. But at the time, like you said, family of medic, everyone's like, oh, why not medicine? But I think that in general is just a huge barrier to overcome, especially in South Asian culture. I'm sure a lot of people will agree. They feel that pressure from immediate family, even now, or, you know, family, friends, extended family. And when I think in South Asian culture, where there's tight family units, that can have a massive effect on choosing careers. But yeah, right now I have all the support I could need. About the time,
different story. Yeah, I think a lot of it is when you're quite young as well, and like your family's quite close, you do pay attention to what they're saying. So it is hard to like, I think at that age I wasn't ready to like go against or like not have that support and carry on kind of thing, which is why I ended up going back to it later in life. But like Anantha said, I think me going back to it, my parents were like, oh no, she's actually being really serious. And in all fairness, they've been great now. Like I remember applying to vet school, and after the application had finished, that was when I realized, because it's my second degree, that I don't get a tuition fee loan. And so I had like this whole revelation that I might, even if I did manage to get a place, I wouldn't be able to accept it because we can't afford it. And that was when my parents were like, no, this is something you want to do, we will figure something out. And like, I'm very privileged in that they're even able to like offer that support. But so now, yeah, now they're like supporting me in that way. So yeah, no.
I do think that's something interesting that's not brought up, because I was like, oh, they were like, oh, if you don't get on, that's fine, you can do another degree and do a postgraduate. But no one was like, but there's no student loan, like you get no funding, that's got to come from your own money. So like, fortunately, like I am on, like I didn't have to go for a second degree, but like that is a big hurdle that people don't know. I don't think there's enough I don't know, out there saying,
100%.
I'm sure there is something who says that, but I was being recommended this route if they were like, if you do it, because I was like, oh, like what happens if I don't get in? They were like, if you don't get in, that's fine, you can take a degree, you know, a biology based degree, like you said, you did zoology, you did biovet, like there are loads of different biology degrees that you can do to then do like the graduate accelerated program, but no one says that like that's gonna come from your
Yeah,
so I can
100%.
imagine that's a shock to the system having to just fork out that much every year for a 5-year degree.
Like I've said this before as well, like if I knew that I had to pay for this degree, I probably would not have even applied. Like I would not have asked my parents to even do that. I think it's such a massive barrier. But I think there is now like a scholarship for second degree students, so that's really good. But it is something to consider, like if you don't have the financial ability, I'd try and hold out and like maybe get some experience or something like that, because it's not a viable option for everybody to have to pay for their tuition fee loan, because it is a lot of money. But yeah,
that's really interesting.
It hurts when that 3,000 goes out.
Yeah.
I can imagine, and then especially when you have to do like living out costs as well, like it just all adds up. But it's interesting what you said about it just brought me back a memory. I was at the dentist a few weeks ago and he was like, oh, like I was like, oh, I feel like my eyesight's deteriorating because I'm just constantly studying online. And he was like, oh, what do you study? And I was like, oh, I'm training to be a vet. And he was like, oh, I really wanted to be a vet when I was younger, like my whole like childhood. I like wanting to apply for it, but I didn't feel like there was enough, like I couldn't understand like the application process, because obviously you got to have the pre-work experience and the personal statement and then the interviews. Like it's a lot to, if you don't have anyone behind you, like a school that's supportive, like it's a lot to come through yourself. And he was like, oh, my family were like, why would you want to do that? Like he was a Southeast Asian dentist, and he was like, his family were like, why would you do that, just go into dentistry? So then he's in dentistry now, but he was like, oh, if I could do it again, like I would love to be a vet. And it just made me feel really like privileged. I was like, I'm literally living out my dream and other people's dreams. Like so many people dream of becoming a vet, and look at us three killing the game out here training to be vets. It was one of those moments. And I think it's also highlighted the importance of like Animal Aspiration and the work that we do to like showcase diverse and positive role models and help like break down the barrier of like applying to vet school, because a lot of people do want to do it, and like you said, like there is a barrier, like access issue, that people, if they don't have supportive schools or supportive families, like it's quite hard, like you said, Veetha, to like go against your whole family for something that is your passion when they're like, oh, I'll just do something else, like whatever, like you're quite young. So I do think that's really interesting. I wanted to ask, do you feel like you had any veterinary role models? Like was there anyone that you did your work experience with who was really like supportive of you, that made you feel like, yeah, I can do this?
For me, there was one South Asian vet. So when I was, in terms of role models, I don't think I really knew any like famous kind of vets or anything like that, and I didn't really follow it that much. But when I was on my work experience, there was one South Asian vet. He had qualified in India, and he practiced a bit in New Zealand before he came to the UK, and he had his own practice. So I did some work experience with him, and oh my gosh, all his clients absolutely loved him. They spoke so highly of him. He was so like clinically competent, like great team working skills. It was just like an excellent practice, and it was such a role model for me. And I was fortunate enough to shadow him as well. But I think I left that placement thinking like that's what I want to do. Where I know like when you're doing farm placements and stuff, you might not really get that feeling, you know, especially if you're cleaning the whole time you're there. But yeah, exactly. But that kind of experience, and then seeing someone who looks like me, made a massive difference, because it just made me think that I could do that to them. And I think that's one really important thing, especially with what Animal Aspirations is trying to achieve. Having like BAME role models can make a massive difference to prospective students, especially at like an impressionable age of like 16, 17. I can just make life-changing changes.
Do you feel like one of the reasons you chose RVC was because of their slightly, and I mean slightly, larger BAME population? compared to other vet schools? Was that something that you were like, when you were looking at, is something that influenced your decision? No?
I think for me, it was literally that it's in London, so I could potentially live at home.
Yeah.
And again, it's like this whole second degree, having like thinking about those costs. But also, I think I'm so glad that I came to RVC because of that. Like, we are so lucky in our group of friends that we've got quite a diverse group of friends as well. And honestly, like, it's what is, when you're doing such a difficult degree, and like having a group of friends that kind of understand where you're coming from, understand your journey kind of thing, it does make a difference. And we are so blessed with our friendship group. So yeah, no, honestly, like it makes all the difference for me.
I think that's one of the things about like having a good support, because having a support network with your family, like we talked about before, is important, because they're like, you know, the people, they're like your family, they're the people who are supporting you all the time. So I think having like your family support network like supporting you is great, but like having people like who are doing the same course as you, who are like with you in your lectures and your practicals, people that you can like share notes with and go through stuff, I do feel like we are very lucky. And we're a bit of an extra friendship group. Like some of the revision stuff that we do together, like we had like weekly cahoots, so we would like make quizzes for each other and test each other like every week of the year. So I do feel like, I don't know, I feel like it's been one of the most positive learning experiences at school. I don't know if you felt the same, but like my school was very, not like each for their own, like obviously there were friends in the school, but it was very like competitive, and it was very like you have to do well for yourself. Whereas I feel like with us, it's all like, how can I help you? If you don't understand this, what can I do to help you to get to understand it? Like, how can we help each other? And I think that's really special.
Oh, we're so blessed, honestly. And I think that's one of the things that's got me through online school like the past year, just having like a great group of friends and having people we can bounce off of. And just like aside from academically as well, we've got like shared lived experiences that we feel comfortable talking about with each other. And I think that makes the world of a difference.
Especially when, you know, one of us deals with an unfortunate incident of like racism on work experience placement or stuff like that. I think being able to talk about, because obviously like at the moment there's not that many support structures from an institution perspective to help you out with that, but I think like having people who can just like listen and like understand how it feels, I think is really lucky. And that's something that not every year and cohort in our RVC has. Like we're very lucky with that, and it's not also something that other vet schools globally, you know, like not just in the UK have. So I do think we're very blessed. But yeah, so you felt like you didn't have there weren't any like veterinary role models, like you know how everyone's like, oh, like James Herriot, like everyone was obsessed with reading the books and the different various TV shows that came from it, and like Noel Fitzpatrick. I feel like there are like pivotal people in like the social media or like the public side of the career, but I never felt like there was
that.
Yeah, there was never like a shared experience. I was like, oh, he's a vet, like that's cool, like what he's doing is interesting, and the stuff that they're doing, like I remember reading the James Herriot books and I was like, I want to be a farm vet. Never like it wasn't like I was seeing myself in them, and I do think that played a big part in your journey, in your like believing in yourself.
Oh no, 100%. And that's why like I love that now that we're seeing on like CBBS and stuff like that, people like Fabian and Bolu, because I think that makes such a big difference. Like I honestly do think that seeing yourself or being represented in a profession that you're considering, it makes it easier to like, if that's what you want to do and your family are like, no, I don't think it's a good idea or whatever, it makes it easier to refuse the path of least resistance, which would be to like, I don't know, become a human doctor or engineer or whatever. Like, do you know what I mean? Like it makes such a big difference. And I think, I think this generation is so lucky to have that. And I'm so glad that there is like a change in like the media and like trying to get diversity, because I think it is really important. Because if you see yourself on TV, like that is a profession that you could do.
I think also like the way social media has been able to help this push is just insane. Like, I know when I was thinking about doing that, it's like 2016, 2014, 2015. Like, Instagram and stuff was there, but I did not follow any like vets on Instagram. I'm not really sure if there were that many. Like right now, when everyone's on things like Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, whatever, having role models on these apps, which is just so easily accessible to young students, I think that makes a world of a difference. Because for us, the only way we could go out and see a South Asian vet, or a BAME vet in general, would be by chance when you're on a work experience Facebook and you just see one there. It's like, oh wow, okay. But like now we can actually like, oh, these people exist, like we can see them right there. But, yeah,
I think we all still get excited if we do meet a BAME vet on placements. Like we like message each other being like, I found one in the wild.
Oh my God. So we've talked a little bit about like role models and a little bit about like societal perceptions, but did you feel like coming into veterinary medicine there was like only a certain like limitation of what you could be as a vet?
I think personally I've always felt, maybe not a limitation, but I've always felt like I have to work twice as hard as my white counterparts to achieve the same things. And that stuck with me for a long time, like this, to the point where maybe I pushed myself too far, like studying way too much, for burning out and things like this, and still not thinking that I'm good enough. But unfortunately, having experiences at university or out on placement, which kind of validate those feelings that I'm thinking of, when you already think that you're not good enough, and then having someone tell you, yeah, you're not good enough, that can be quite damaging. But again, we've got a great group of friends who helped me get through things like that.
I think there is like you already have an imposter syndrome. I think a lot of vet students have it. But I think an added like facet to it is that you're going into a space that isn't very diverse already. And then I think going back into like the whole role model thing, like I know Olivia, you're interested in like stuff like conservation, like veterinary stuff, like, but stuff like that, you don't, again, there's not much representation there either. So you feel like, okay, maybe that's not achievable kind of thing. Maybe I'll just stick with something else. Like, I don't know, I feel like the imposter syndrome is real, especially like I think Anantha had an experience as well with like having other students come up to her and being like, well, I don't know, you can tell it, but
yeah, I think things like that is where I already think that I'm not good enough, but then having other students come up and say, you're only there in this position, you're only here as like as a pity kind of, okay, you're a tick box, we need more BAME students, and that's why you got in. And things like that that can really, really hurt. Just, I think the BAME student in general, I think people really underestimate like how damaging that can be, being told that you're only here because of your skin color. When
a quota, yeah,
like all three of us here, we've taken some long routes to get to where we are now, and then being told I'm only here because because of my skin color is just like, okay, like what more do I need to do to prove to myself and prove to you guys that I deserve to be here? But it shouldn't be like that. I shouldn't have to prove to anyone really, except for myself. Yeah,
I don't think I realized that there was a problem with diversity in professions, and specifically in veterinary, until I like started like my first day, because like I came from like a very multicultural, multi-faith school in South London. Like there was lots of representation of everybody. I just kind of, and obviously in London, I just kind of assumed, like, I don't know, you just kind of live in like your little liberal bubble of everything, like fine. And then I got to like a London university, and I was like, oh, like it's still in London, it's gonna be fine. And I remember like walking in, I think it was like the introduction lecture, and I like looked at the lecture hall and I was like, oh, solid. It's like I had no one, like I was like, I'd never felt like, obviously not that that's something to put you off, like you shouldn't not do an opportunity because you're the only one, because obviously you can like open the doors for other people and you can help like someone has to be the first to help other people come through. But I think it was the first time that I was like, I'm gonna be like, I didn't realize that it was like that seeing other people that like looked like you meant so much to me until it wasn't there. I think the fact that it wasn't there, I was like, oh. And I was very lucky that me and Veetha were on the same tutor group, so like we met each other like on the first day or the second day, and then like I just sat down next to Anantha and I was like, hi, my name I feel like,
ever.
yeah, honestly, so I was like, oh, you look nice, I'm gonna go say hi to you. I think, yeah, I didn't realize, and then obviously like I was like, oh, there's not that many people, and Animal Aspirations were like, you know, they were like, as every society does in like the freshest week, they're like, oh, like this is us, like you should come join us. I was like, oh yeah, I'd love to. So then I was like, oh, I'll get involved with Animal Aspirations, and I feel like the more I've been doing it and the more I've been like speaking to people and doing events and stuff, I'm like, this is a problem. I didn't realize how much of a problem it was. And like speaking to vets in the profession, they were like, I was the only one in my vet school for the whole like 4 years, and then someone came when I was in 5th year, and I was like, that's insane. That's insane. And it's a lot of like mentally on you, like the fact that we can all vent to each other is like a luxury that a lot of people who are currently practicing like didn't have. So I don't know, as I keep saying, we're blessed. And also you do deserve to be here. I know that you have experience where people were saying that you didn't deserve to be here, and it just made my heart a bit sad when you were just saying that. But I just want to reiterate that you do deserve to be here, because you're all very smart and you're doing very well, and I'm very proud of you both.
Right back at you, babe.
But did you feel like coming in, I don't know, do you feel like not specifically BAME society perceptions, but just like society in general as looking at vet? I don't know, I just assumed it was only small animal. I don't know, I just came in, I was like, oh yeah, you're a small, like anytime I speak to people in London who are talking about vets, they're like, oh, my cat did this and my dog is this, and then we just have conversations about cats and dogs. But I think going to university, I was like, oh, you can do anything. There are so many things you can do as a degree. So do you think that like the society or perceptions of being a vet, not specifically BAME, like has some influence on people's like decisions into doing it?
I think it's like this idea of what you have work experience or what experience you have of it. I think like, so I've lived in London all my life, so the type of work experience I could get was mostly smallies. So that was what my perception of being a vet was. Basically it was smallies, because that's all I could get. So I think going to vet school and like learning about farm vetting and wildlife vetting as well, like I think that does make a difference.
I think for me, because I grew up in Kent, but yeah, there's like I don't know, even then I think because I've got a cat, I think when I thought of vet, I just thought, you know, small animal vet. Although I did do like some farm experience before I joined my first degree, but even then I don't think I quite realized just how many opportunities there are within vet med. Like I think even now I struggle to like comprehend that.
I know, like even if it's not about like clinical practice, like you could do so many, you could work in like pharmaceutical companies, you can work with DEFRA, like there are so many different career opportunities that I hadn't even like
considered
like on my radar of stuff that you could do as a vet. Like it's such a versatile degree that I was just like, I'm still a bit like, well, just literally like oyster. There's just so
oyster.
There's just so much I can do. Do you have any like specific goals for the future? Anything you're like aspiring to?
Pass vet med. Short-term goals, let's get through.
Yeah, definitely. If you asked me a month ago, it would have been like pass second year, and that would have been as far as it went. But I'm gonna go for pass vet med at this point as well. Like,
yeah, I think that is long-term future is like I'd like to specialize in small animal surgery, and hopefully long time in the future I'd like to open my own practice one day. But yeah, I think my main life goal is just be happy, be healthy, and pass vet med.
But I do think a lot of like, it's so interesting to think that we have been manifesting getting here for such a long time. Like there were times that we didn't think we would make it, and now we're like at vet school in second year. I just like, sometimes it's really easy to get swept up in the destination of like, oh, I'm going to be a vet, like I have to do this, I've got to do this exam, and then this exam, I'm going to revise this, and to get to the next year, to get to the next point, to like to become a vet. But I think sometimes it's just so easy to get lost in the like the journey of it, like the fact that we are all living out our dreams. I just think it's so inspirational. I think we're all inspirational. I'm very proud.
No, I definitely sometimes get that, where you're like just swept up, and like thinking about long-term goals like breaks me out into a sweat like nothing does. Like, but I think it's just when I need to like remember that getting into vet school was a goal, and I'm here. And yeah, like you said, we need to kind of enjoy it, and I will be happy doing whatever I end up doing with this degree. So yeah, no.
I think that we are destined to have more hardships than other people. Like we're not just vet students, we're BAME vet students. Like no one ever looks at us like, oh, you're just a vet student, like in second year. It's like, oh, you're a BAME vet student in second year who's doing like XYZ. Like I know Anantha, you've got a lot of like extracurricular diversity inclusion sort of programs going on, but I feel like, I don't know, there's just like additional things that you just have to account for that you don't have to think about if you're not BAME. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think even on
placements. Sorry.
Oh no, I was just going to say, like, even on placements, you don't get seen as a vet student. If you like, yeah, like we went to like a placement, and we were introduced as, so these are vet students that don't look like vet students, and it was just like this whole idea of what does your typical vet student look like then, like. Yeah, so I think there's also like a pressure for, or not a pressure, but I think we understand the importance of doing the work in order to make the vet profession more diverse. And so I think that's why like you and Anantha are like really involved in increasing like diversity and like in like at the uni and the profession as well. So like I think there is an added facet to that as well. Yeah,
I think it's a part of our identity, to be honest. We will never be just vet students. And to be honest, I think I'm okay with that. I don't like people saying, you know, everyone's the same. You know, I want to be recognized as a BAME vet student because that's who I am, and I'm doing the work for that as well. But I don't like the idea of people saying, you know, all vets are the same, or like you're all the same. I was like, no, because we come with like lived experiences which have set us aside from the general population. Like that has given us, you know, this thing within us, which is why we have set up things like Animal Aspirations and all the other work that we're doing. Like it's driven all of these projects and groups forward, and it comes off the back of our experiences. And I think that's so important. Like I don't want that to be brushed to the side either. But having said that, I'd like it to be in a positive way. Yeah. I don't want to stick out as being a BAME student because, you know, because you're a tick box. No, we're here, and you know the work that we're doing is because of all these. Like we should all be treated the same, but we're not, unfortunately. So
I think it's the fact that it is part of our identity, but we're also so much more than just a BAME student.
Exactly. Yeah.
We do a lot of other things as well. But I think it's this idea of like we are different, but that's not a bad thing, because if anything, our clients aren't all the same. Like in London, we're like in one of the most diverse areas in the UK, and we need our profession to reflect that in order to relate to our clients. Like there will be situations where a client comes from a different background, and because we come from a similar background, we can understand what their thought process is and help them talk through it. Right? I think it is important that the profession does reflect the people it's
the
serving.
population. Yeah,
100%.
Do you feel like like your as Anantha, you were saying, your lived experiences are one of the reasons that you wanted to like get involved with like Animal Aspirations and the other thing, because you wanted to like, I've been through it and I don't want anyone else to go through it, like I want to make it
Exactly.
a better place. Do you think that's like the founding of why, you know, we're doing these sorts of things?
Yeah, absolutely, exactly that. I can't bear to think that like this is just going to be a cycle that keeps getting repeated, especially so when I joined uni in 2016, you could count on one hand how many BAME students there were in that room. Now there's so many, like even just in our friendship group, I'm saying so many.
Relatively.
Yeah, we'll calm down a bit. Still not enough, but that's why when I look, you know, when we graduate in 5th year, I want to look back on the first year's incoming and be able to see so many BAME students, and the fact that we have paved this way for them and made it easier for them. They should not have to undergo the same things that we have. And I think I can feel like a profession-wide kind of change and shift in that attitude. Whereas before it was all swept under the rug, but I definitely feel like now, which probably, you know, was started off since the Black Lives Matter movement, but I see the profession itself changing a lot, and a lot of vets in practice who've been working for 30, 40 years, they can also turn around and say, you know, these vet students are still undergoing now what I went through 20, 30 years ago. So what's actually changed? Nothing. So I think now that we're coming through, we can look back and say, okay, we've made those changes, which is so important. And the whole profession is going to benefit from this. Our clients will benefit from this. We will all benefit from diversity.
No, I do definitely feel like we're seeing a change, but I think sometimes, like obviously after the Black Lives Matter movement last summer, 2020 summer, there was such a big push for having stuff done immediately. They were like, we need answers and solutions immediately. And this is just not one of those things that you can fix like with a snap of your finger. But I do feel like change is going to take time because it's institutionalized, that we need to like be breaking through. There's a lot of stuff that happens in primary school, and your access to a good primary school and like your access to a good secondary school, like that's the foundations of your knowledge before we even think about, because a lot of the widening participation programs that the universities in general like look towards are, you know, like year 6 form or like year 11 students. But like the problem, like
earlier,
yeah, the problem so much earlier than that. So I do think for it to be like complete change is going to take a long time. So I do feel like, yes, we're seeing a lot of positive change, and in the last year I've not seen change at a speed like this before. I feel like people are actually listening, whereas before we were like banging down the door, be like, hey, do you want to like do this with us? I've written everything up, I've got a plan. They're like, no, oh, sorry, something we're like interested in. Whereas now they're definitely, even with like institutions like universities, they're definitely looking more within themselves about the leadership and like the levels that people, you know, are able to apply it for jobs for. So I do definitely think that it's changing, but I do think for the change that people are expecting to see, it's going to take longer than, you know, like us being at vet school. So I do think what we're doing is good, and I love, you know, I always get so inspired when I see people younger or older, like, you know, it's such like a nice environment where we can all like be inspired and feed off each other's inspiration. So I really enjoy that, but I do think it's going to take a long time for us to make long-term change, because I think there's a lot of things that we're putting in place that aren't gonna see the effects immediately.
Later, yeah.
But
I think you also need to remember, like, what we're doing at Animal Aspirations, I would have loved this stuff like if I was like a school that had like Animal Aspirations to come do a workshop. Like I think that's what I love about it. It's something that I 100% would have like identified with and enjoyed, and I think it is important. And even if we like manage to change one person's like, or like solidify one person or one kid's like thought process of getting into an animal related field or anything like that, I think that's major, honestly. Like that's such a big thing. And I do love that Animal Aspirations is looking at like doing workshops with younger kids as well, because I think that is important. Because like at sixth form it was too late for me. I needed someone to come to me at like primary school, secondary school, and I think that's why I identify so much with Animal Aspirations, is because they are trying to do that. So yeah, no, definitely.
Do you ever feel like there's like being ambassadors and stuff, do you ever feel like there's like a conflict between wanting to showcase positive role models but also like not having do you ever feel that sort of like conflict of not having the role models but being the role model and wanting to showcase role models when there aren't really role models but you're kind of a role model, sort of like weird feelings? Do you ever feel like that, or do you just feel like the positive effects of the events like is bigger than yourself, so it doesn't matter?
I think even with something like doing this podcast, I think there is that moment of, does it, like, is what I'm saying you're going to help anyone? Like, do they want to hear from me, kind of thing? I think there is always that, am I even qualified to be a role model? Like, I don't really understand how that happened, but I think it's something that you talked to us about before we started this podcast. Like, it is about telling people the different journeys that you can get into vet med, and like our own personal experiences, and I think people can identify with that, but there is this constant, every time we do an event, I'm always just like, I'm not sure if like it would be helpful for me to help in this event, or if like the kids are gonna like, if what I'm saying is gonna help them. But
I think that kind of comes into like imposter syndrome, like for me.
Yeah.
Am I BAME enough to be qualified to talk on this? You know, like, do my experiences count as valid to be involved in something? Like, do you know what I mean? Like, I always feel like, oh, but there are people who are more BAME or are more this, that you always like negate yourself and your own experiences, whereas it's like we can all be role models to get, like, why does it have to be me over you? Why can't we all just be like positive role models helping lift the profession together? So I do think that's interesting, and I do feel like a lot of people, even if like what I think one of the things is that as a BAME person, you don't actually have any, like, there's not like you're on a course where they talk to you about how to be BAME and how to talk about being BAME and like how to tell institutions to like fix up and how to, you know, how to make change. Like, it's not like there's a blueprint for us doing any of this. It's literally trial and error, us making mistakes, us, you know, learning ourselves, like, you know, reading books and podcasts and listening to podcasts and watching documentaries. And it's like educating ourselves. But like, I don't know, I feel like it's always like a really weird, like, oh, I don't feel like I'm qualified to be speaking on these matters.
Exactly.
And it's like, no, this is our lived experience. We're all valid as BAME people. And I think as visibly BAME people, because there's like a differentiation between like being BAME and being like visibly ethnic minority, which is important. Like us being visibly ethnic minorities, showcasing ourselves, even if we don't feel like we're being positive role models, just talking through our stories so that someone else can listen to it. Because I feel like if this was something I had, or if Animal Aspirations, like you said, Veetha, was something you had when you grew up, it would have made a world of difference. I think it would have been just such like I just think all the different, because it's not just Animal Aspirations, there are tons of different organizations doing similar sorts of stuff to increase, you know, diversity within the profession. I think all of them combined, even though we're all like separate, have like a recognized like understanding and like love for one another, because we're like, yeah, look at us, we're all like doing the same thing, we're helping out and we're doing something good. So I think it is all interesting. I think, yeah, I don't know, I just always feel like I don't know if I can do this. I don't know if I'm qualified because I don't have any.
Yes, you can.
You definitely
can.
You are doing it.
You know what? I think I just want to say, I feel like role models, they don't have to be this amazing person who's achieved so many different things and blah, blah, blah. I think seeing a role model that's in a position which is just so achievable makes a massive difference in itself. Just, it can be your ordinary, but you are a role model and you don't have to do anything. It's just you as a person. I was like, that's what we can see you, and you're in a position which is so achievable for us. And the person that you are as well, you know, be good-natured, good-hearted person, and achieving the things that you have achieved, you know, that's enough. You don't have to think about what am I doing to be a role model. Just be yourself.
Yeah, I know. I do think it's always difficult to, like, I don't know, I feel like it's easier to get in your head and there are other things that you have to be thinking about. It's like, oh, I'm not just a spokesperson for an ambassador. I'm not just a spokesperson for a vet student. I'm a spokesperson for being BAME. Like, there's just like you're always on, you know what I mean? Like, you're always have to be on a presentable mode, and you always have to be a representation of vet students, BAME ambassadors. So I think it is a lot more to think about. But you're right, I think we're all role models, because even if you don't, like you said, you don't have to be a person or like a public figure to be a role model. Like there's always going to be someone who's like the step below you, who's like, oh, look at them living, like doing what I want to do. And then we're always looking to the people above us, like, oh, like all the people who we're friends with who have just graduated. We're all like, oh, look at them graduating.
Exactly.
That's what we want to do. I do think it's interesting. Okay. So I just wanted to ask, do you have any like advice to people applying to vet school or biological careers in general, who feel like, because they may be one of the only few people in the room, especially when it gets to like higher levels like masters and PhDs, that do you have any advice for them who might be like struggling with that sort of like, why me, like can I really do this myself? No.
Okay, so no. I was just waiting. No, I think like it helps to talk to other people, and I know they're far and few in between, but like with social media, I think it is a lot easier to find someone. And I think a lot of even like the academic field, I think a lot of people are so happy to talk to you about it as well. I think that's the main thing. Like everyone has been so inviting. And I think there are people out there who are trying to increase diversity. I know like there's a whole STEM movement as well. So I think just like try and like email a few people if that is something that you're seriously considering. But there's also like the idea of doing the work experience really like solidifies. Like I remember I'd done a whole load of work experience and I was getting really worried about the whole application process and just like there's a lot of hoops to jump through to apply to vet school. And I was just panicking about that. And I messaged someone who had graduated as a vet and I was like, oh, I don't know if I can do this, blah, blah, blah. And instead of turning around and being supportive, they turned around and was like, well, it doesn't sound like it's something for you. And I think at that point, it would have been so easy for me to be like, I can't do this. But because I had done the work experience and I remember enjoying it so much, that's kind of what pushed me through that point. So yeah, I think it's just like mostly talking to people who are already there in that position, if you can. I know it's not always possible. But like, I know, Olivia, you've managed to talk to like some amazing people who are out there doing their thing, and they've all been so welcoming and they love it when people talk to them about their experience. So yeah, I think that's what I'd advise, maybe.
I think for me, just don't forget that you're not alone. There's so many people who've walked this path before you. People here, you know, we've been through that, and we're here to help. We're not the type to kick the ladder out underneath us when we get there. I think we're trying to help more people come through. And don't worry if you don't get in first time round. You know, there's no such thing as failure as long as you keep trying. There are so many different routes of getting into vet med. We've taken longer routes. They may be harder, but the life skills I think you learn, that you gain, and then the things you learn help you grow as a person. And I think it'll put you in a better position as well when you reach there, and it makes it even more sweet when you get to the top.
Yeah,
but you're not alone. There's so many people. We're here to help.
And I think like just in general life advice, like for applying for things, is just get involved. Like even if it's like, because obviously we've gone through vet routes, so everything's like very work experience, like vet related, like call up vet practices and, you know, book work experience and such. But I think generally for like biology, like if you're interested in something, like find out who else is interested and like see if you can have a conversation with them. Like I know my brother is very interested in frogs, he loves his frogs, but because of that he's just like found people who are like also interested in frogs. He's found like, you know, organizations and charities, and he's like, oh, can I help, can I get involved? So it's just seeing what you can do to like make that small step, like make the small connections, even if it's just like going, like seeing if people have like open days. Like I know like a lot of like animal charities have like welcome days, or like learn about us as a charity sort of days, like going to them and seeing, like just putting your foot in the door, just trying out lots of different things and seeing what you can do, I think as a more like biology sort of career path is really important, because making connections is everything. Connections will get you
networking.
Networking is a life skill that everyone
Very,
should.
very true.
My biggest lesson is remember names. Remember the names of people you've spoken to. So if you ever need to email someone who's different, but it's the same, I've spoken to Tony.
Exactly. Got a name drop where you can.
You've got to find names for everywhere. And I think, like you said, like a lot of people do want to help, even if it's not, because I know this conversation specifically been about BAME, but like there are a lot of people who aren't BAME who still want to help, but they want to be allies. So it doesn't necessarily, you might be the only one, but because you've got so many people like professors or charity or people who want to be interested in you and want to invest in you as like, you know, their time and resources and skills, that you doesn't necessarily have to be like, you don't have to be looking for BAME role models to be doing the career you want to be doing. And I think that's important, because like you don't have to have a BAME role model to know that you can do that job. I mean, it helps to see that yourself in a career, they're like, oh, like they've done it, I can do it. But like there are going to be people who are supporting you, there are going to be people who like want to see you succeed. So I think generally just something like any career, like just don't doubt yourself. I think the biggest thing is confidence. You got to believe in yourself more than anything, because like yes, people believe in you, but like you're the one who's got to like make the decisions, and you're the one who's got to like go out for yourself. Because I know, Anantha, you are like, it's quite young that you have to decide these things. So I know people are like, oh, you can do whatever you want in life, but like especially if you want to go into like choosing your A levels and stuff, that sets you up for what sort of like university do you can apply for. So like at like, you know, even your GCSEs, that decides kind of what A levels you can do. So kind of like, you know, you're like 16, 17 trying to like
make big decisions
courses, you know, like it's quite difficult. So I think just like try as much as you can, because for me, I did the most random A levels. I did English, music, biology, chemistry, because I was like biology and chemistry still get into medicine, and English like was a like an allowed extra subject. And then I was like English and music in case I want to do anything else. I was like, I really kept my options open as long as possible. But no, just trying to get experience in whatever you're interested in, because you might find out you don't like it. You might do 2 weeks at a vet practice and be like, actually no, I want to do something more research based, and like you do something in research and like actually no, I want to do something more like public speakery, or like, you know, you've always just got to trial and error to find out what you like. Now my final question to you is, do you have any life mottos that you live by that help you get through hard times?
Yeah, for me, it's if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And that just sums up my family, my support network, my friendship group. You know, we all work together and we're trying to go far. That's what my goals in life. Yeah, that's it. And I think I just want to give a shout out to my tutor, Victoria. She supported me so much, but I think in my first year of vet med, I think she really helped me change my way of thinking into, you know, enjoy the journey as you're going through. You're with your friends, like this time isn't going to come again. And as much as we hate it whilst revising for exams and all that stuff, but I think when we finish vet school, we'll look back and think like that was a great time. We have a great group of friends, and we're all going to help each other get through.
That's lovely. I like that. Veetha?
For me, I think it's just like, not that I condone eating elephants, but if you're going to eat an elephant, you need to do it one bite at a time. And I think that helps me, because I think I get quite overwhelmed, like even with like the vet application process or revision, like I can be a mess when it comes to revision, as you guys know. But it's this idea that there's so much to do, and I get overwhelmed by the big picture. So I need to like take it into like little chunks which are manageable. And I think that really helps me. And I think that you can apply it to a lot of like life as well. Things happen one step at a time. You're not gonna like wake up tomorrow and be an amazing qualified vet. There's a journey to get there. And yeah, like Anantha says, you need to enjoy that as well. So yeah, no.
I do think breaking stuff down is really important. That's like useful in all of life. Like if you need to be able to like write down your goal, like what's the end goal? and then how do I get there?
How do I get there?
Stones
Yeah.
that I need to achieve to get through. So I think that's really important, especially because like so many things in life are very overwhelming, and it's a bit like I don't know how to do anything, but being like, no, what small things do I need to do like every day to get there?
Exactly.
Okay, well, this has been such a lovely conversation.
Thank
Thank you for joining me to talk about.
Thanks for
Thank you for having us.
Yeah.
Oh, I love you guys.
We love you too.
So far, I feel so genuinely destiny that we've met each other.
100%.
I think about it all the
Stars
time.
aligned, and it just all worked out so
Exactly.
perfectly.
Just like the universe knew we needed each other to get through this.
Yeah.
I
Who would have thought?
feel very blessed that you guys are my friends and we're all on this journey together and we're all going to become great, amazing vets together.
Woo!
And be positive role models for future generations. That's what we are.
That's what we want
Yeah,
to
buddy.
see.
Okay, well, thank you for today's session. And I hope people listening to it got something out of it, because I feel like you girls are like some of the most inspirational people in my like personal life. Like they're always, you know, there for me, and we always have such interesting conversations about like life. And you know, I think being BAME students, it's a lot of conversations that we normally have within ourselves as a friendship group regardless. Like we just talk about these things, and like if there are events going on at the university or like in the profession, it's down to we talk about it, but it's stuff that other people who might not have like BAME friends have exposure to. So I think this is a nice way for us to publicly share our conversations. I don't know.
Yeah.
I've enjoyed speaking to you again today.
Oh, thank you so much.
Thank you for having us.
Yay.
I hope that through this episode, we've inspired you to go for opportunities, even if you feel like you're the only one. I also hope that we have shone some light onto the thoughts and feelings that we have as ethnic minorities on the VET program. If anything we have spoken about has resonated with you about imposter syndrome and feeling like you are not good enough, then please know that you do belong and you are doing an excellent job. Thank you for tuning into this episode of the Animal Aspirations podcast, and we'll see you next time.